The judge avoided my gaze. I stood in the courtroom, hands clasped neatly in front of me, just like they'd taught me during therapy, composed, controlled. Across the room, my wife sat in a perfectly tailored black dress, dabbing at invisible tears. Beside her was her mother, stone-faced and oozing self-righteous judgment. Then the words dropped like a hammer. He's unstable. A threat. Her mother's voice rang out loud enough for the court reporter to catch each word with brutal clarity. Even my own father couldn't meet my eyes when her lawyer asked if I was capable of raising my own daughter. He gave a quiet nod instead. A coward's approval. That was the moment it hit me. The verdict had already been decided. Not by the legal system, but by everyone who once claimed to love me. But they underestimated one thing. They let me speak last. 3 years ago, I would have stepped in front of a bullet for that woman. The kind of love I felt for her consumed me, the sort that blinds you to every warning sign, even as they flash like a parade. I believed we were building something real. A future. A family. Our daughter Leela was the one thing that kept me grounded when everything else felt like chaos. Every night, I'd sit at her bedside, whisper stories, smooth her hair, and make promises I meant with all my heart. But then my wife began drifting away. Not Leela, her mother. She started saying I was overwhelming, too much, suffocating. What I called love, she labeled control. Then came therapy sessions. For Leela. I agreed, thinking it was a mature decision as parents. But something didn't feel right when Leela stopped telling me anything about them. She needs boundaries, my wife insisted. Don't make this about you. And just like that, the walls began closing in. I wasn't even told face-to-face about the custody petition. I found out from a letter in the mail. No conversation, no explanation. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just listened. While they twisted the story in court documents and whispered it among friends, I quietly started gathering facts. Every inconsistency, every half-truth, every lie. For a short time, I still had access to our joint bank account, 2 weeks to be exact, before she locked me out. That window was enough. I traced transactions being sent to someone named Eric. Digging further, I found photos, texts, hotel bills. She wasn't just trying to push me out of our daughter's life, she was working to replace me altogether. So I smiled. I played along. Let her win arguments I never intended to fight. Meanwhile, I moved in silence. I had my attorney request access to Leela's therapy records, legally permissible in our state when a child's well-being might be at risk. I never reached out to the therapist directly. That would have been a mistake. But through the proper channels, we got what we needed. And what we found changed everything. The therapist had documented serious concerns, not about me, but about her. Coaching, psychological manipulation, gaslighting. It was all there, written down in clinical detail. But when the therapist declined to speak out privately, unwilling to violate confidentiality, I waited. Patient. Silent. Until the day we stepped into that courtroom. That day in court, my wife sat tightly wound, like a predator hiding behind grief she didn't truly feel, grieving a life she herself helped destroy. Then her mother was called to testify. He isn't fit, she declared confidently. I've watched him since the day they married. He's obsessive. She looked me dead in the eye, confident I'd stay silent. Confident I'd let it slide. Next came my father. He's always struggled with his temper, he admitted. That one cut deep. But I didn't react. I was bracing for what I knew would change everything. My next witness, my lawyer announced, is Dr. Coburn, Leela's therapist. My wife's head snapped toward her attorney, eyes wide. She began whispering frantically. The tension in the room was immediate. When Dr. Coburn stepped up to the stand, his presence was calm, steady, clinical. The room fell completely still. He opened his notes and began. He explained how Leela had been subtly conditioned to distrust me, how her mother had interrupted and altered her recollections, how Leela had broken down in tears during a session, saying, "Daddy never hurt me. Why does Mommy say he did?" Each statement landed like a precision cut. Then came the line that shifted the entire trial. Even the judge held his breath. "I have an ethical obligation to report that Mrs. Allen has emotionally manipulated her child into fearing her father, with no factual basis. These patterns strongly suggest psychological abuse." My wife exploded. She leapt toward him in a rage, shrieking, "He's lying! None of this is true." The bailiff rushed forward, restraining her as she fought to break free. The entire courtroom watched as the facade cracked wide open. The judge turned pale. The illusion was shattered. The hearing, effectively, was over. Later, in the hallway, with no reporters, no bystanders, just the two of us, she approached. "You set this up," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, felt absolutely nothing. "No," I said calmly. "You did." The verdict came down. Shared custody. Not because I pleaded. Not because I made a dramatic speech. But because the truth, once spoken clearly, doesn't need fanfare, only a chance to be heard. Her mother never returned to court. My father sent a single message: "I'm sorry." I believed her. I didn't reply. Leela and I began rebuilding. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. She asks questions now. I give her the truth, no matter how complicated. We sit on the floor drawing monsters. Hers usually have 3 heads. Mine always seem to wear her mother's smile. Betrayal doesn't always strike with a blade. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wearing concern, nodding along while you're being buried alive. But I've learned something. You don't need to shout to be understood. Justice, more often than not, is about patience, letting your enemy talk long enough to expose themselves. And when they do, let their own words become the fire that consumes them.